Hey there, Doug Sahlin, your digital photo guru. Today we're going to go on a photo shoot on a beautiful beach in Florida. And then we're going to take some of the images into Lightroom. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when I upload new videos. Leave a like and leave a comment in the comment section. And if you watch the video all the way to the end, I'll show you something very cool in Lightroom. Now, on with the tutorial. It's a beautiful winter day in Florida. Cloudy and a slight breeze. I've got my Fuji X-E3 and a couple of lenses. Let's go shooting. To be a good photographer, you've got to have a roving eye and observe, imagine, and create. And when you're walking and looking for things to photograph, be in the moment. And when you see something that piques your curiosity, stop and take some pictures. Be cautious when you're out shooting. Look down, make sure you're not stepping into a pile of fire ants or on a pygmy rattler like I once did. This is beautiful, but it could be so much more. I really think this calls for bracketed exposures and HDR. And here's my recipe to create a pixel perfect HDR image. Bracket 3 to 5 exposures with a difference of 2 EV. If your camera is set up for exposure bracketing, this option is usually in the camera menu. Refer to your camera manual to learn how to set up exposure bracketing. Shoot with a small aperture. Shoot with an f-stop of f8 or f11 to ensure maximum depth of field. Also make sure the shutter speed of the longest exposure is fast enough to capture a blur-free image. You may have to increase the ISO to achieve this. Hand hold the camera. Most HDR applications automatically align the images, so a tripod is not needed. Press the shutter button. Your camera will bracket the number of exposures specified in step 1. If you specify 3 exposures, one will be underexposed, the second image will be exactly what the camera metered, and the third one will be overexposed. And you merge these together in an application like HDR Effects Pro or Lightroom. It's getting dark. I've got some great images. I could stand a cup of hot tea to warm up, and it's time to go to the digital darkroom. Okay, I've had my cup of tea. Now let's make an HDR image. Okay, so here are the 5 bracketed images from our beach shoot, and now I'm going to merge them into HDR. So I've got all the photos selected. If I right click and choose Photo Merge HDR, my window opens and Lightroom creates an HDR preview. Now this takes a little bit of time. One thing I'm going to mention, it was kind of windy outside, so I am going to choose deghosting, and I'm going to choose medium. This will take it a little longer, but I always like to err on the side of overkill to make sure I've got the shot. And notice there are two settings in there, auto align and auto settings. Lightroom will automatically process the merged image for proper exposure and everything else, but like everything else in Lightroom, you can adjust it. And it's also set on auto align. Remember I said you didn't need a tripod. Lightroom does a very good job at aligning the images together. Okay, so there's our HDR image, and there's the deghosting. This foliage was moving a little bit, so it applied deghosting to it. And now I'm going to merge the images into one HDR. Okay, so there's my HDR shot. Now I'm going to go into the develop module because I want to do a few things to this. But notice it's increased the exposure, increased the contrast, work with highlights and shadows. I'm going to tweak the texture just a little bit because we do have foliage in here. And something else I am going to do is add a little bit of clarity to it. To make it pop just a bit. Okay, it's pretty good, but I'm not completely happy with it. It wasn't actually this bright out there. So I'm going to double click this to return it to the left a little bit, actually with 0 increase on exposure, and that's a little bit too dark, so I'm going to increase this just a bit, because it was winter's day and it was a little bit on the chilly and dark side. But the clouds still are not dark enough for me, so I'm going to add a neutral density filter to it. And I'm going to tweak the image just a little bit in the color grading panel. And I have another tutorial on YouTube about the color grading panel. And I promised you I'd show you something very cool in Lightroom, and that is profiles. This is kind of hidden. It's at the top of the basic panel. So if I click on this now and I go down to browse, look at everything I've got. I kind of like the Velvia look. What you have in the profile browser may be a little bit different depending on your camera. But notice we've got artistic, we've also got black and white, and this modern one is pretty good too. But I'm going to go back to the Fuji Velvia one, and that's pretty much a wrap. And I also worked on this in a program called HDR Effects Pro. And let me show you what I got there. It's more of a wintry look. And I actually like this one a little bit better. So there you have it, a photo shoot on the beach in Florida in the wintertime.